All right, we're recording, so welcome this evening to our first CIS 117 Hangout. Welcome to the introduction to SQL programming and databases. My name is John Beck, and I'll be your instructor this term. Let me start by seeing, do I already have our, yeah, I do. This is our Canvas learning management system, and I'm gonna leave the student view and come back over to the dashboard, which is one of the first views that you will see when you log on to Canvas. Matter of fact, let's go one step further. Let me drop this browser altogether and let's bring up a totally new browser and log on from scratch so you can see that. And I'm gonna move the talking head off to the side for a moment. So I'm gonna go to pipeline.sbcc.edu and okay, apparently I'm already logged in. And up in the ribbon, we have Moodle, which is our old course management system. If you've taken an online class with SBCC before, that might be what you're accustomed to. And in some other departments, you may find that they're even using Moodle this term. So it's possible that you have some courses in Moodle and some in our new learning management system, which is called Canvas. I apologize that we couldn't, as an institution, get everything converted all at once, but given the volume of courses that's out there, that isn't always possible. But all of the CIS course offerings are now, I think, in Canvas this term, and if not, they certainly will be by next term. So I'm gonna click on Canvas, and here's my dashboard. Mine will look a little bit different than yours, depending on what courses you are enrolled on, or enrolled in. And here's our 117 course. And I can click anywhere on that or on the text link. And that brings up our course learning management system. Let me park the talking heads off screen for just a moment. Okay, and so we have a welcome and kind of an introduction. There are 3 activities that are required by this Sunday, but they are not graded. And they are your orientation forum post, tell us about you, sort of a student welcome. There is a practice assignment and an orientation quiz. And there are 2 purposes that I require all of these, and that is the discussion shows me that you have learned how to do posts successfully. The practice assignment shows me that you've learned how to upload materials to the Dropbox successfully. And the quiz shows me that you've learned how to take a quiz using the learning management system successfully. And so you get to practice all those sort of in a low risk situation where there aren't any points involved. The other thing that I look at is if students do not get these first assignments done by the 28th, as they're required to, I know that something's up with that student. So I can reach out to you and try and get you on track. And if we can't do that, or if I can't reach a student, sometimes we'll have a student that just never shows up. I will unilaterally drop them before the drop deadline, and so they can get a refund on the course, and it saves their grade point average, and it saves them from having a W mark on their transcript. That W isn't necessarily a bad thing. It doesn't hurt your GPA. It just said that you withdrew from a course, but it does have an impact in terms of repeatability. They only allow you to have so many W's on the same course before they say, hey, what's up? You know, you need to move on. And if you're not really going to finish this course, you know, maybe you need to look at another institution or do some more preparatory material or something like that. The other thing is, if you have a transcript that is just riddled with W's, the institution you're transferring to may look at it cross-eyed and going, were you shopping classes, or what was the deal there? So we try and keep your W's down. And main thing is, I'd really like to save you the money if you can't get on track for the semester. But if there's anything I can do that will connect you and make you successful in the class, you know, that's really what I want to do. So this is sort of my litmus test for that. Okay. One of the first things we will do this in this term, and what is the first week is devoted to, really is making sure that you can connect to a database and use the database tools. And that's what I plan to focus on tonight. But the first thing I really should start by saying is this is not only an online lecture, it is first and foremost our class Hangout. And what that means is I want to hear from the students, from you. What are your questions? What do you want to see? What's important to you? And we're going to use our time on that. And then if we have time to fill afterwards, I can hit my agenda, which basically all the things I wish you had asked, but perhaps you didn't. If you don't have a mic, you can go ahead and type into the group chat box as well and give me a message that way. All right, so let me pull you guys, since I don't hear anybody speaking and I don't see any typing. So Yesenia, have you got questions, things you'd like me specifically to cover?
Just setting up the software for using MySQL, since I have never used Microsoft
okay.
software.
Okay, so you would like us to look at the setup, and then let's see what is on Kyle's agenda. Kyle, you've got specific questions for us? Okay, I'm not hearing from Kyle, so I'm going to move forward. Madeline, you have specific questions for us? And oh, here we go. So Kyle has typed, no, nothing specific, but walking through the setup would be helpful. Okay. And Madeline says nothing specific yet, just getting acquainted. That's great. That's fine. And Melissa, would you say your name again for me? I want to make sure I get the stress in the right, but Melissa, right?
Perfect. That's perfect. And yes, I agree with everyone else, Yesenia, that also the setup. And how would you prefer for us to reference you? Would it be Professor or Mr. Beck, or how would you like?
You're welcome. You're welcome to call me John, Mr. Beck, or Professor. It doesn't matter. I think at Santa Barbara City College, until I actually have tenure, I think technically I'm not a professor. I'm not picky about it. I do appreciate a kind tone rather than what you choose to call me. But John is just fine, or Mr. Beck if you're uncomfortable with John. That's all good. Thank you for asking.
For answering, and we're going to ask one more question.
I'm not quite sure who we're hearing from, but we're getting a lot of background noise on the mic.
Yeah, I think that was mine. Sorry.
No worries. Okay. So one of the things you can do if you might have a noisy mic is there should be a mute control in your Zoom conference bar. You can hit mute, and then when you're ready to say something, just unmute yourself. We'll do that unless somebody has like walked away and left a noisy mic on, in which case I might go in and mute it. All right, so we want to go over the installation, but before I can address that, we ought to talk just a little bit about, can anybody tell me if they are using other than a Windows PC at home? So let's kind of walk down. Yesenia, are you using a Windows PC at home?
Yes.
Okay. And Melissa, are you using Windows at home?
Yes.
And Kyle, Kyle's on Windows PC, he says. And Madeline? Okay. All right. So with the people that are on for the Hangout this evening, everybody's using a Windows PC. And so most likely for you guys, the easiest thing to do is going to be to install SQL Server locally and install your SQL Server Management Studio locally. And if you take a look, I have in the materials presented information about how you can do that and how you can get started. I have redone a lesson here. There used to be a lesson module when we were using Moodle online, but now I'm using just a Word document And I'll go ahead and open this. We can walk through it together. And what I have done is I have put in hyperlinks and bookmarks that make this work sort of like interactive, only instead of just pushing the buttons, we have to control push the buttons. See when I hold the control button down? And so this lesson says, choices for using SQL Server this term. How are you going to do it? Are you going to do what nobody in an online class actually does and go to the SBCC campus computer lab? No, we don't want to do that. I'll use my Windows home computer. That's probably 75, 80%. And then if you don't have a Windows home computer, or if you, for whatever reason, can't install software on it, we can look at a couple other options. But let's take a look at option D. I'm going to use my Windows home computer. You click on that, and there is a video link out there that you can go and see how to install this. And the first thing I put up there is the link to where do I get the software. Okay, so let me follow that link. And there's our SQL Server 2014 Express. You can click download, and when you do that, it gives you a whole bunch of different choices that are kind of confusing. Thank you very much, Microsoft. So you are going to want the 64-bit, and you are going to want, you can do this two ways. If you want to download two pieces that are a little bit smaller, you can download the SQL Server Management Studio separately and then download the database engine. It's probably just as easy to either get the SQL Server Advanced 64-bit, which has the tools and everything, or the Express and tools, saves you 160, 170 megabytes, and you're going to download that executable. Once that executable is downloaded, you're then going to run it, and it's going to go through the install routine. And when it does, it's going to ask you a few questions, and you're going to go like, wait, how am I supposed to know what the answers are to these questions? Back here to the video. So if you go and take a look at the video that I posted there, I do a walkthrough, and there's a walkthrough actually in two parts. Oh, hush. Okay, so the two parts, I show you how to do the separate install of the engine and then the SQL Server Management Studio, okay? And I'll be able to answer in the video some of the questions about, well, how should I answer this? Or it's asking me, am I going to use Windows authentication or SQL Server authentication, and what does that mean, or mixed mode authentication? All those questions get answered in the video, and the nice thing is you can sweep back and forth in the video and look over something 4 or 5 times if you need to see it again. And if you have questions, you can just post to the Q&A discussion or email me, or pick up the phone and call me if you're really stuck. And my office hours are kind of limited on campus, but those are not the only time, especially for online folks, that you can call me. If you call me Monday through Friday from 8 in the morning from 9 in the morning till 8 at night, it should forward to my personal cell phone, and if I'm available to pick up your call and take it right then, I will. And if not, I'll return your call as quickly as I can, because I want to be accessible to you guys. Okay, so these videos are kind of the first line. And it's a lot like installing other software from Microsoft on your computer, other than there are a couple questions that may not be obvious what the answers should be. Okay, so two pieces. One is the engine, and the other one is the SQL Server query tool. A query is a question, so it's what we use to ask questions of the database or to manipulate the database, either the database structure or the data that's in the database. And let's take a look at what those two tools look like. Well, I can't really show you the database exactly because the database, really, it's an engine. It's not visible. But if I show you in my task manager and we go looking for the processes that are running on my computer, we'll see that there are indeed some processes running that have to do with SQL Server, 64-bit, SQL Server Windows NT 64-bit, and there are some other related services having to do with SQL Server that make it easier to find and connect to the database. And then as far as using the database, we're going to use, you will have installed SQL Server 2014 Management Studio, or later. You could use a later version. I'd like you to avoid using earlier versions because you may find that there's some features missing that we're going to be demonstrating working with this term. And the first time you run this, it should, if you don't have any other SQL Server tools previously installed or SQL Server instances, it should come up ready to connect to your local computer. Otherwise, look at the videos and it will guide you through putting in the correct settings to connect to a database. So I tell this to connect, and I notice I've missed a couple things in the group chat. Let me just take a moment before I go on and see. Okay, I guess I didn't miss a message. And I did see a couple messages come in. Let me just check real quick, because sometimes if someone's having trouble connecting on Zoom, they'll email me, and doesn't look like it has to do with us. So I think we're all right. Okay. So we have the SQL Server Management Studio up, and we've connected to the database. When you first open this, you're going to find that none of these databases exist, and you need to create them using a SQL script. So let's go ahead and see how we do that. Where do we get that SQL script, and how do we run it? Okay, so I'm going to start by dropping these databases. Okay, so now you have what you would see if you had first installed the software and you're ready to get going with it. Okay, and again, all this is in the lesson and in the videos I've published. But and stop me anytime somebody has a question. Let me know, and I'll be happy to address it. All right, so now I need a script that is going to create the databases and populate them with data. So for that, I need to go back over to our Canvas LMS. Okay, so here we are in Canvas, and if I look at the course resources, there is something called Files You Will Need This Term, and there's a page here that says SQL Database Build Scripts for Assignments and Textbook Examples. Okay, and the first two here, the CIS 117 database and the HCAT database, those are the databases that I've created for you to work with our exercises this term. And then all the rest of them having to do with Colonial and TAL and Solmaris, those are all the publishers' database that correspond to the exercises in the book. So you will need all of those. Before we get started, I'll mention that there is a difference between the ones I've created, the HCAT and the 117 database, and the publishers, and that is the scripts I've created will actually create the entire database, switch to that database, and put the tables in them. The publisher scripts are a little bit more granular. So you'll notice that there's a create script and there's a drop script for each one. One of them creates the tables, the other one drops the tables. Neither of them creates the Colonial database. So in order to use that, and I will show you this, we need to create the database first. But let's start by just populating the CIS 117 database SQL. And I think that, because downloading is not really exciting to watch, I think I have already got a copy. Yeah, here's the create HCIT SQL script that's been downloaded. So I downloaded it here to a little folder in my documents area called tilde CIS 117 demo. Okay, so next what we want to do is we want to open that file, look at it, and run it. So back to our SQL Server Management Studio, File, Open, and I said that was a file, and it's out in documents in tilde CIS 117 demo, and here's the HCIT script. Okay. So if, in case you're wondering, HCAT stands for Healthcare Information Technology. And so I have different terms I will teach using different data sets as the emphasis. I have a commerce data set, and then I have a healthcare data set that I've created. And it's interesting to look and see what some of these commands are. These are not commands that in the CIS 117 class, you're going to be responsible for knowing these or learning how to use them. But if you're curious, they're certainly not too difficult to kind of understand and study. You could certainly learn to use them. So what does this do, this script? It starts by using the master database. And by doing that, it makes sure that we're not currently using a database that we might need to delete if it already exists, because you're going to use this script not only to build the database in the first place, but if you're playing around with the database and you change some data or you accidentally delete or damage some data, you're going to want to be able to run the script several times during the term in order to put things back to the expected state so that your exercises go as the author expected them to. So we start by using the master database, which has got all the system tables and whatnot. So just so that we're not sort of, think of it as trying to stand on a sinking island. If you're about to delete that island out of the archipelago, you don't want to be standing on it when it sinks. So we step to a safe island, then we go and say, hey, if this HCIT database thing already exists, let's drop it. And if it doesn't already exist, then we can just go forward and create it. And then once we've created it, and that can take some time if you're connecting to a database remotely, it might not drop instantly. We're going to wait until we see that it actually has been created. I said drop, I should have said create. Once it's been created, we can use it. And then once we start using it, we're going to create the admissions table, we're going to create the admissions diagnosis table, we're going to create the diagnostic codes table, and so on and so on. And if you scroll down, as you would expect, after it's created all the tables, it starts pumping data into those tables. Okay, so let's go ahead and run that and see how it works. So just, again, nothing up my sleeve. If I come here and refresh the database, I did that by right-click on the database, refresh, and then expand this out. I have the system databases, but nothing else. So let's go ahead on this code and let's run it. Up. HCI does not exist. Did I change something? I wonder if I changed something when I was, it looks like I dropped a T. I may have inadvertently deleted something. So I'll tell you what let's do. Let's close that file and reopen it. And let's run it. And this database, HCIT, is pretty sizable, so it can take a couple moments to finish running that query. While that's running, let's see about some of the other, there it goes. All right, so once that's run, it's useful to go through the messages and make sure that you don't see any errors. There shouldn't be any errors. I see just rows affected from data being inserted. And now, if I come over here to databases and refresh that again, I now see that there's HCIT and there are our tables. Okay, and we want to make sure that there's data in the tables. There's a couple nifty ways to do that. One is I can come right over here, right click on the table and tell it select the top 1,000 rows from that table. And this is the query panel, and this is the result panel. And I can change the screen real estate by moving the splitter bar up a little bit. And as we scroll through, we see that there is indeed a full cadre of data that's been brought in there. So that's looking pretty good. As a matter of fact, one of your first exercises this week is really nothing more than running this script, and then you're going to issue some commands to look at each of those tables to make sure that they are complete and intact. So let's create a new query, and we can have, as you saw, multiple databases. Right now we've only got one built. Let's say use HCIT and end the batch by putting a semicolon there. And then let's say take a peek at what tables are out there. So we can say select, and we want to say select all records. Shorthand for all records is a wildcard, asterisk, select star from, and the database name is, or the database table is named admissions. And notice that I have IntelliSense here, which means it automatically will complete my typing, sort of like on a smartphone, or if you're used to using any of the development environments like Visual Basic, Visual Studio, or Eclipse. Most professional development environments have something like IntelliSense. And I can move my up and down arrows to select what I want to complete. And if I hit tab, it'll save me some typing. So that's nice. Select star from admissions, and let's end the batch there and run it. And there it shows the results for that table. And I can do this for table after table after table. A couple nifty things here. We do not have to open a separate window to create a new query. We could go on here and say select star from, and in this case, let's take a look at admissions diagnoses. And if I just want to run the second query, if I highlight just the piece I want to run and execute it, then I get the second one. And the other thing I could do is I could run it all. And since there are two queries, if you take a look, I actually get two result windows, one below the other. Isn't that nifty?
Yeah.
That's kind of fun. Okay, this can be helpful. I mean, you can always create under the query window. And one of the things you might try when you're working on stuff, copy everything from one query window to another query window, and then you want to change something a little bit, and then you can run it, and you could pop between the windows to compare, better or worse, like going to the eye doctor, right? Am I getting closer to what I was trying to do, or does that show me where my problem is? So you can work with multiple tabs. You can also work with multiple result sets in one window, although it does tend to get crowded unless you have one of those super big monitors. So that's it as far as my scripts, the HCAT and CIS 117DB scripts. Let's take a look for a moment at what's necessary in order to work with the publisher's scripts, however. So let's see what I've got out here. I think I had a couple that were downloaded and ready to go. Okay, so I've got TAL and I've got drop TAL, okay? And let's open up one of those and see what it actually does. So file, open, file, and then let's create TAL. Now notice that this script jumps right in on creating the tables. It doesn't say which island in the archipelago we're working on, as it were, what schema, what database are we working on. So if we want to put this into a database called TAL, we need to come over here and create it. The easiest way to do this at the CIS 117 level is to do it visually. So we're going to come over here, right-click databases, and say new database. And we're going to call that TAL, and just leave the defaults alone and say, okay. So now it's created TAL, but if I look in TAL and I look at what tables there are only the system tables. There's nothing there. Now, this will create those tables, but right now I am in danger of creating them. What was the last database I used? HCIT. I am in danger of creating them on HCIT because that's probably what this connection has in use. And I really don't want to pollute the table space by mixing databases, tables from one, because there could be, like this has a person, Tal probably has something called customers. Do you want to try and keep straight in your head that persons are for medical stuff and customers are for the e-commerce stuff? It just would be very, very confusing. We don't want to pollute the table space that way. So what we want to do is come in here and let's make sure we're using the Tal database. Use Tal. Now we could just add that up there and run it as a whole batch, but what I would do, just for sure, highlight just that piece, execute it, and say, did it work successfully? Yeah, okay, now I'm using Tal. So now if I go ahead and fire this off, even if I no longer have the use statement in there, it's using Tal, and when I execute that, it's gonna create it on the Tal database. So if I come over here and close up HCAT and Tal, let's refresh that for a second. Look at the tables. There's customer, item, order line, orders, and again, 2 ways I can find out what the data in there looks like. Right click and say, select the top 1,000 rows, and that looks good. Okay, now, how do I get rid of these tables to refresh them? So I've done some exercises and I messed with the database and I maybe deleted or altered some tables in ways that I didn't mean to. And just to show you how easy that is to do, let's take a look. New query window, and let's say use Tal, and let's take a look at customer, and let's look at the columns and customer name, update customer name, and oh, let me take a moment offline and figure out a good example here. All right, do it this way. Let's say we update customer set, and what did we say it was? Customer name equals Popeye, and single quotes. All things in database are single quotes. And I meant to say where, customer number equals something. But if I blow that statement, so here I've got it accidentally commented out. And let's see, do I have that? And I went, wait, 12 rows affected. I didn't mean to have 12 rows affected. Now what? And you go and you look at your select query again, get the top 1,000 rows. Everybody's named Popeye. And you're like, oh, holy smokes. Professor Beck, now what? Well, don't panic because you've got the drop and create script. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go File, Open, File, grab the SQL Server Tal drop script. And again, This one is less harm if you forget to use the use first, because chances are the same customer name doesn't match on a different database. But just to be safe, let's say use Tal, and let's run that. Bam. And now if you take a look at your Tal database, we didn't delete the whole database. Okay, so let's refresh this. But if you take a look at your tables, they're all gone. But that's okay. That's what we wanted to have happen because we need to fix this. Now we come over to our create script, load it up, say use Tal, just to be safe, run it, and now we've gotten rid of Popeye. If we come back on Tal and refresh the database and take a look at the tables, and let's grab the top 1,000 rows, and I'm no longer dealing with everybody being named Popeye. Yay. Okay, so dropping the tables, recreating the tables, dropping the database, recreating the database, installing and setting up Microsoft SQL Server, Management Studio, and the database. That's one way to do it. Questions? Okay. All right, let me show you one other nifty way. Let's say that you are running a Chromebook or you're running a Macintosh, you don't have the benefit of a Windows machine, or let's say that you're maybe a little bit ahead of the curve for this class and some of the stuff I'm teaching you is pretty fundamental. You'd like a little bit additional challenge. You could do this all in the cloud. And I have documentation there about the Amazon Web Services Partnership, which is AWS Educate. Santa Barbara City College CIS department is an AWS Educate partner. And so it takes about a day, but if you will go and ask Amazon to give you a Educate grant as using your pipeline email address as an SBCC student, they will give you a $100 credit if you're willing to give them a credit card to secure your account, or they'll give you a $75 credit with no credit card needed. And I like that because students aren't always happy about using sharing their credit card with vendors, and for that matter, not every student necessarily has a credit card they can use for that. So you can get a $75 credit, and a $75 credit with Amazon Cloud Services actually goes a long way. And what you can do is you can run a virtual Windows server right in the cloud. Let me show you how that works. Before the video started, I spun up an instance of a virtual machine in the cloud, and that instance is one you can make copies of, and I've got instructions on how to do that. It's actually not hard at all to do that. But if I go over to the AWS Management Console, and I'm already logged in, okay? And if I go to my Elastic Compute 2 instances, virtual servers in the cloud, EC2, once it's spun up and running. And if I take a look at my instances, I have running out there something called SBCC CIS 117. And from my Macintosh computer or from my Windows computer, I can just say connect. There's a little bit more involved if you're running Linux or Chromebook. Let me know and I'll walk you through that piece. But I can just say connect, and I can download and open the remote desktop file. Remote desktop protocol, RDP, is built in to Windows and current Mac operating systems. One thing that's a little bit of a curveball is I'm not going to log in with my administrator account from my local machine, which is John Laptop. That wouldn't be the right context. So I'm just going to log in with a different account. It's still named administrator, but it has no context. And the password, if you choose to spin up your own instance, you should change the password as soon as you get it. But by default, it's SBCC-CIS 117. And it says, are you foolish enough to trust me? And of course I am. And now this window is remotely controlling Let me minimize it so you can see it. This is a Windows window. It's a lot like a browser window. I am remotely controlling a new computer in the cloud. When I maximize it, it takes over my whole screen. It looks like it is my computer. And in that, looky here, I got Visual Studio, or excuse me, Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio. And it actually runs pretty quick for a remote computer, and one that is, this is a pretty lean computer. I built it as small as possible so it would cost us the fewest billing units against our $75 credit. And I open it up and just say connect. And I am now running, and look at this. All of the databases are already out there for you as part of the image. You still need to know where the scripts are if you were to mess up the data, which you should explore. You're going to mess it up. That's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. Let me minimize that app. But if I need to go get them and rerun the files are actually right over here under the documents, I believe, under a CIS 117 file. And here's all my SQL scripts all ready for me to go. I don't even have to download them from Canvas. I'm good to go. So there's a way. The funny thing about this is you could download the Remote Desktop Protocol (RDP) for your Android phone or your iPhone. You could be controlling your SQL Server. I guess you could do your work from your smartphone if you wanted to. I think it probably isn't the best platform, but yeah, by goodness, you could. So one thing, if you decide to explore the cloud as how you're going to run this term, when you are done running it, and again, $75, it probably, if you run the whole month, it probably costs you no more than $6 or $8 a month to keep running this computer in the cloud, 7 by 24. But why pay for anything if you aren't using it? Make that $75 go as far as possible. And find the swipe. There we go. And just make sure that when you're done with it, you go ahead and power it off in the cloud. And that won't make your billing exactly zero, but it will make it as close to zero as it can. You're still paying for the storage, and you can double check that. If you refresh here in your Amazon console view, you can see that computer is indeed stopping. And as soon as it's finished stopping, you're not paying for the running instance. And so save your account credits. $75 could easily last you a year's worth of classes or more. So another option. Other questions about running, because there's like 3 or 4 other ways we can and have students have run successfully different variations and connected to their databases for this class. Okay. I'm not hearing anything, but for the sake of completeness, so let's say that you are just really determined to use a Macintosh computer. Macintosh, unless you dual boot or run a Windows VM on your computer, you can't run the SQL Server Management Studio natively. But there are other SQL clients that run on the Mac, and some of them you can have for free. I have documentation on that. So you could install dbeaver or one of those tools, and you can remotely connect to a database running in the cloud. And so another service that's out there in Amazon is called RDS, Remote Database Service. And so you can have the database engine running in the cloud and be running a local SQL Server client. Again, it won't be Microsoft SQL Server client. It'll be something like dbeaver, and run your queries through that. It'll look a little different than SQL Server Management Studio, but it works the same way. And so you could be not only working, learning about the cloud, you could be running in a distributed system. So that's kind of wild and fun. But one way or another, there should be something that fits every size out there for whatever you would like to do in connecting and doing your work this term. I think probably the best bet for the most part is if you have a local Windows system to install the software locally. All right, other questions?
Nope, not for me.
Okay. All right. Well, we're running down to about our last 10 minutes, but let's do one other thing while we're here, and that is let's take a further look around our course shell and see where to find some of the resources there. Because Canvas is new to everybody at SBCC. As I said, the campus at large is migrating to it. Some departments haven't fully gotten there. I think pretty much most, if not all, of the CIS department courses are migrated, but you might still have, so if you're taking multiple online courses from multiple departments, you might still have a course in Moodle from another department and a CIS class that's in Canvas. So I apologize for the extra complexity that dealing with two different systems causes you. But when you come in, you're going to see the modules view. Pretty much everything is set up in chronological order, and so we have our welcome and sort of some background on what to do first and how can I get set up, and I put in a bid right here at the top for getting the AWS Educate grant. I would recommend anybody who wants one that's a Santa Barbara City College CIS student, go ahead and put in for it now. It takes usually within 24 hours to process. That way you'll have it if you want to use it and explore it, great, and if not, no harm. So that's fine. And then there's sort of an orientation. If you're new to online classes with SBCC, it's certainly everybody's going to be new to Canvas. And we have our practice activities. I think I spoke about those earlier, and they're basically just to make sure everybody has a low stakes opportunity to practice making posts, practice uploading an assignment, and practice taking a quiz online. I also use that as a filter. So if I see that students haven't done that by Sunday the 28th, I can reach out to those students and say, hey, do you really want to take the class? Do you need my help getting out of the class? If you want to be successful, I'm here to help you. If not, let's get you out of the class so you can get a full refund and not have a W or a fail on your grade. So that's kind of my litmus test there. The course resources here, the files that you'll need this term. There's a final exam study guide that I've published to point you in the right direction, plus the DreamSpark link. That's the DreamSpark Microsoft Academic Alliance. Let's say, for example, that you have a Mac and you decide that you would like to put in a virtual machine like Parallels, either buy Parallels or you could use Oracle VirtualBox for free. So you can run both Windows and Mac operating systems on your Mac at the same time. That's pretty cool. Where do you have to buy the Microsoft Windows operating system? No, students can get a copy of Windows 10 for free from DreamSpark, and that's a full perpetual end user license. So Windows is out there. Just about everything Microsoft offers to the retail market except for the Microsoft Office suite. That one they still charge you for, but just about everything else you might want you can get free from DreamSpark, which is very cool. There's our extra credit opportunities for this term, and in this class, because this is such a short class, I don't have a lot of extra credit in incremental bits as we go. It's all in doing an extra assignment, and I have two different kinds of assignments there. One is more on the design side of database, and the other one is really kind of fun. It has to do with GIS, geographic information systems, and learning to explore and use geographic data. That's kind of a fun activity, especially because you'll get familiar with Chocolate Maya, which is the best chocolate shop in Santa Barbara. If you're not already familiar with it, you should be. The salted caramel is, there ought to be a 12-step program to help with those who try it. So you can pick up another 5 points, which in a 100-point class, that's an extra half grade level there. So I strongly recommend if you might be, miss an assignment or I don't accept late works. If you're late on an assignment or just maybe that one assignment that didn't work out for you and you got fewer points and you wanted to do the extra credit anytime between now. It probably makes more sense to do these closer to the end of term, but anytime between now and the final exam, knock out the extra credit assignment, put another 5 points in the bank. It can make all the difference in getting the A or getting the B. in the course. And then we have 3 discussions each week, and one of them I think you're really going to enjoy. There's the first one is not really a discussion. Actually, 2 of them I think you're going to really enjoy. The doodle discussion is really about going and doing something we talked about in lecture. And so you go, you do it, you take a screenshot, you post about it, and you get points for it. So you don't have to do a lot of reading or a lot of creative writing, which a lot of students, especially people who love CIS and database and programming, oftentimes don't like the writing assignments. Go figure. That's kind of a fun way to pick up an extra point. And then the unquiz, that's really just your review questions from the book. Pick up some points by doing that. And everybody does one of the review questions, which means by the end of the week, we get most of them knocked out. Go copy it and use it as part of your study guide for the final exam or for the quiz. So that's kind of like a low stakes way of everybody kicks in one question. We end up with something that everybody can study from. And then what I really like is the C1, B1, T1 discussion. In this, you can use a tool. I would recommend just using Zoom, and you can pick what you learned this week, and in under 3 minutes, so 1 to 3 minutes, use Zoom. It can be a one-person meeting. Nobody else has to be there. Just record it, and then teach us one thing that you learned that you thought was interesting, or that initially gave you trouble, or that you thought might give another student trouble. So it can be very, very, very simple. It doesn't have to have high Hollywood values or big production values, and it doesn't have to be the most complex part of the week. Something that was useful to you or that you think would be meaningful. You teach a little 1 to 3 minute lesson on it and post it up there, and you got to do one other thing. You got to go look at one other person's at least and comment, give them some feedback about their video and what you liked about it or what you thought was insightful. We try and be real positive. I'm not looking for a lot of critical, don't tell them everything that was wrong with it. Tell them how it might be strengthened or enhanced or improved. That's great. But, go there and see what they're doing. And the reason for this is, in my experience, you don't really master something until you teach it to somebody else. So this is a way to do a capstone each week. It's kind of fun, and you pick up a point for it. So bonus. All right. That's pretty much the course. Questions about any of the course mechanics or concerns, anything coming up that's going to be a challenge for you individually, or are we there?
Question for the video, is that for this week or next week?
Yep, it's great question. So here's a couple ways we can see when things are due. One is in the modules view. Let me move us out of here. So in the modules view, if you take a look, doing the video is, the first one is in discussion 1.3, and that one's due August 30th. And so what you're going to find is that the weeks are sort of expanded, except for the first week and the very last week are a little bit shorter. But what we do is I open each new week on Thursday, but the materials from that week that opens Thursday before the actual beginning, the calendar beginning of the week, they're not due until Tuesday following the weekend of the subsequent week. So if you count it up, you get almost 13 days to get work done. Except, like I say, in the first week and the last week, truly we can't overlap weeks before the semester starts or after the semester ends. So those have to be truncated. And this one other thing that is due extra early, and the reason that I make it due extra early is I need to have time that if students are in trouble, if they just haven't showed up, I need to know early enough that I can drop them so that they can get a refund for the course, or so we can keep the W, or ultimately if they stay in the course but don't do the work, I end up having to fail them, and nobody wants that. I want everyone here to succeed. So I do everything I can on my part, and part of that unfortunately means, kind of being heads up on students that didn't show up for the beginning of term and getting them out You know, I can always if I drop a student in error, we can reinstate them if they show up the next day. You know, I can sign an appeal, but mostly I can't do anything for them if we let that drop date go. After that, all I can do is say the state's going to keep their money and they're going to get a W, or if they stay in the class, they're going to get a fail, and that doesn't do anybody any good.
Okay.
So yeah, the other place you can see this that maybe it makes it a little clearer is over in the syllabus. There is number one, there's sort of a compressed view, detailed view of the calendar and what's due when. But what I would rely on most, what is the official sort of the contract for the class is the print syllabus. And let's go ahead and open that. And that talks about who I am and my grading philosophy and what book you need and how the points are broken down. And the most important thing here perhaps is a recap of what's due when. So you can see here that, for example, the first week, this opened on Monday, but the actual due date is, okay, 8 days later for the real work. These are the ones that are due the 28th. There's no points involved in those. Just I need to make sure that you show up and that you know how to do the course mechanics. But take a look at this. So our second week, 8/25, week opens, but it's not due until September 6th. Same thing. The first, and you're not due till the 13th. So basically 12 days, or if you count the day that it starts, 13 days later. So, you know, you have a generous amount. That's part of the reason that I don't allow late work. Also, secondly, in an 8-week course, there's just no time to make it up. And what I found is in the past, when we've allowed any late work, it tends to, you know, make a bad situation worse. Now, that said, if there are emergencies, medical emergencies, or that sort of thing that happen that I need to take into account, contact me privately during the term, especially if I mean, emergencies we rarely know ahead of time, but if there is something that comes up, you can let me know ahead of time. You know, we can usually find a way to work around it. I need to demand accountability and professionalism from my students, but I'm not without compassion, and I really want you to succeed. So, you know, you have an advocate here. You know, I'm on your side, and if I can put my thumb on the scale and tip it your way, and do so with integrity, I'm going to do that. So, all right. So there's our syllabus and more about the extra credit and all the other information about the labs and academic integrity and DSPS if anybody needs special services. That's one to make sure that I get that request from the DSPS office early so we can set you up with extended time or whatever accommodations you're entitled to, and I fully support that and want to make sure that you get everything that you are entitled to make the playing field level for you. All right, so we're at time. Thank you so much for attending this evening. I hope you have a great time in class. And again, any questions that are public questions, put them in the Q&A discussion. Anything that has a private matter or is grade related, email me. And anything that's urgent, I love talking to you guys. So if you call my office phone, you know, I have office hours that I'm actually in the office. But those are all that's like 5.5 hours a week or something like that. I have my office phone forwarded so that between 9 in the morning and 8 at night, it will find my personal cell phone and ring it. And if I can pick up right away, I will. And if I can't, I will call you back as soon as possible. So don't be shy about calling me if something urgent comes up. But again, probably the best thing, if it's a question you have and it's, you know, course question related, personal business or urgent business, put it in the Q&A, because not only you know, will I see it, but all of your classmates will see it. They can answer. And the other thing is, if you have the question, chances are, you know, 8 or 10 of your other classmates have exactly the same question. And if I answer it for once in the Q&A discussion, I answer it for everybody, and everybody benefits from it. But so 3 ways at least to copy me or to contact me. The fourth way, of course, you're welcome to come. I love it when you come and see me during my office hours. It's always a great idea, if you can, to set an appointment. And I am going to be my committee assignment for the term, and it's going to interfere with my office hours on the first and third Thursdays of the month. So I'll be updating the syllabus to reflect that, but I'll send an announcement about that, so you don't have to remember that. I will communicate that to you. So thanks again. It's great meeting everyone, and I hope you have an excellent term and find the course really, really worthwhile. This tends to be a very practical course. It tends to be one that relates to employability and to job skills and promotion. So I just have a great deal of fun teaching it, and I am usually delighted to see where my students go with it. Many of them now, former students, are out there making more money annually than I am, and that makes me very happy indeed.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You bet. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording now, and if anybody has a question that they want to ask me, off the record,